All right, so boom, welcome back to another episode of the Black Caliber Podcast. I am here with a very, very special guest and a super lovely lady, Dr. Brenda Allen, but I'll also let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Brenda Allen, President, Lincoln University, Pennsylvania.
Right, great person, right? She be giving so many opportunities to people like me. Great.
Good.
Let's
That's what
see.
we like to hear.
Mm-hmm. So, let's just start with, how's your day going?
My day is great.
It's just,
It's a good day. It's beautiful.
it is just really nice, really hot to be October.
Right. Enjoy it while you can.
Definitely, because when it get cold up here, it get cold.
Yep.
So, what was your journey like to even becoming the president of Lincoln University?
Wow. Yeah, I thought about that. I had a very traditional journey, relative. So I graduated from Lincoln. I went straight to graduate school, finished my PhD in about 5 years, went to a postdoc, did 3 years there, went straight into a tenure track faculty position, was tenured after 5 years, got a promotion soon after that, started administration, and then moved to the next administrative job. And each administrative job got successively more responsibility that leads you right to a presidency. So I went from being an assistant to the president, to being an associate provost, to being a provost, to being a president. So that's a very traditional pathway for people, or at least it was the more traditional pathway in higher ed until recently. Now people come to this position from a lot of different vantage points, but mine is really very traditional.
So starting out, did you know that you wanted to become?
Oh no. So I'm first generation college. Lincoln was a place where I learned about higher education. I also learned that there were opportunities to be in academia, that there were ways in which I could do research on questions that were important to me. So this university opened my eyes to what those possibilities were. And then going to graduate school, I had no clue. So again, I was handed off from some great people here, went to Howard, got my second set of great mentors who just really prepared me and encouraged me to stay in higher education. And as I moved on, I thought it would just be a faculty member, happy teaching, being a professor on a campus. Got interested in administration early on. And it wasn't until I was teaching at Smith College, which is a women's college up in Northampton, and Ruth Simmons became the first African-American woman to head an Ivy League institution. And so she came in as I was just about to be tenured. And so seeing her take that position was really the first time I saw someone up close who was African-American, who was female, and was a college president. And so I decided, I can do that. So I talked to her about it, and she just began to make opportunity for me to get on the pathway, encouraging me to do things like make it through the faculty ranks, get promoted to full professor before I really stepped off, encouraging me to actually do some administrative work and get paid for it, but get experience broadly in the university. And then she just created major opportunities for me, both at Smith. When I left Smith and went to Brown to work for her, she just created more opportunities for me. And then when it was time for me to leave, she supported me in coming back to the historically Black environment. When I decided I wanted to be a president, I wanted to be a president of a historically Black college. And some of my friends say I always said I wanted to be president of Lincoln University. I don't remember that, but people said that's what I said. So I guess I just spoke it into existence. Yes, but it's mentors, it's the evolution of doing things that presidents do that help you to understand whether or not it's the job for you, whether you enjoy it, whether you actually can get things done. And so having those opportunities along the way really prepared me and helped me to really see myself being able to do this job.
So now that you have the job, what are some of the things you like most and things you may dislike a little bit more, things you weren't expecting now that you have?
Well, I can't say that there are things that I wasn't or that I hadn't expected other than COVID. Nobody saw that coming. But given the range of experiences I was able to have before coming here, I had seen a lot of things. And so while the exact nature of them may be different from campus to campus, the idea of crisis, the idea of financial problems, the idea of enrollment problems, all those things were familiar, and you have sort of a skill set on how to think about it and solve that problem. So that was great. You know, the greatest thing about being here is this, right? So I see you all, I see you around campus, I see you doing your thing. You know, I remember you all as freshmen, you just green and just running around, and you look around and all of a sudden you all own a yard, you're doing the things that are great, you're preparing yourself. And for me, that reminds me every day of why I do what I do. So for me, the greatest day is always commencement when I hand out all those degrees and people are happy and smiling, and I can say, I remember him when woo. And to see them actually leave is the most rewarding thing I think any college president can have. The most stressful thing is money, making sure that we can keep you all here and get you through, and trying to figure out how to juggle the dollars we have so that you can have the best experiences and still be able to stay, because, you know, we're helping a lot of students close that financial gap. And so I hate worrying about money, I really do. But if I don't worry about money, then I won't be worrying about making sure that students can be here and have a great experience. And so you just take it as the challenge in front of you. But I wouldn't change being at Lincoln for being at a place where, because there are places where money's not an option, but in places where money's not an option, I don't have as much joy in terms of the number of lives of kids that I really want to vet and put them on the right path. And so being at an HBCU for me is the most rewarding thing. And even though sometimes resources are tight, nothing beats our ability to do what we do with the resources that we have. And we see that every commencement and reunion, right? You see them coming back or homecoming, and people have jobs and they're happy. That's great.
It's really dope. Like, it's nice to see that you're that connected with the campus to even be able to see those things.
Oh yeah, but you know this is my campus, so before it was y'all, it was me.
You're not wrong. So what are some key principles of you feel like your leadership and things that you do that stand out and differentiate you?
Well, I'm definitely driven by student success. So everything I do, every decision I make from my understanding of what's going to make my students successful. And so that's the way I lead. That's the way I encourage those who work directly for me. That's what I try to push down as deep into the organization as I possibly can, that we do this for a reason. No job is anonymous, right? At the end of everything that we do, it's somebody's child, someone's niece, nephew, son, daughter that we are either propelling forward or holding back. And so we just try to think about all the ways in which we can make students successful. And when I have a team that believes in student success first, I think we can make things happen. And so I'm happy to say that that happens around here, right? Get people on the same page. We figure it out. We figure it out when we have money. We figure it out when we don't have money. We figure out how to get it done, because everybody cares about how we can have the most positive impact on the development of the students we serve. And so when you go into your mission, your job with student success, first and foremost, I think you can get almost anything done.
Okay. So, especially talking about student success, so what what part of that motivated this big change that we just had campus-wide from going from 3 credit to 4 credit?
So I mentioned on my journey here, I taught for about 14 years at Smith College. Smith College is one of the seven sister, Ivy League liberal arts institutions. And quite frankly, when I was here, I wasn't quite sure I couldn't put a name around what my experience was, but going there and then being engaged as a faculty member, I came to understand that I had been the great recipient of a liberal arts education, right? An education where most of my time was not spent just learning facts and figures, but time spent writing, right? Learning to write, learning to make arguments that make sense, being persuasive, doing research, doing the things that increase your intellectual and problem-solving ability. So I really know that when I left Lincoln and went to graduate school, I was ready, right? I had a great education here. And it wasn't because I knew every psychological theory there was, but I knew how to do research. I knew how to critique a paper. I knew how to do data and analysis, right? That's the core of a liberal arts education. And you learn to do those things because you're not just going to class, but you are doing things outside the classroom that help to reinforce that. When I got to Smith as a faculty member and had to step back and look at what was required of me for my students, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. So I started to study just what the liberal arts really were, and then try to understand better, and I think more deliberately about how you deliver a great liberal arts education. And so that's Lincoln's history. That's what we have done historically. But over the course of the decades, we've moved further and further away from that. And we moved further and further away from it, even though it remained a part of our mission in terms of what we stated that we did, but we weren't practicing it in that way. And so my first 6 months, I was like, we need to reinvest in our roots. Our roots were when we were strong, right? We were graduating people who did amazing things in the world. And they didn't do amazing things because they were a business major or a biology major. They did amazing things because they were strong intellectuals, right? That they could take any idea, and because of the experiences that they had on campus, they could actually turn that into something else. I mean, look at you, y'all doing podcasts, right? We won't have a class on podcasts, but to be able to take all the things that you've learned how to do and then have the opportunity to apply it to something that you're passionate about, you are increasing all your skills, right? You're learning some technical stuff, editing and so on, but you're listening for ideas. Editing is not just cutting and pasting, right? It's making sense of a whole bunch of stuff that people are talking about. Those are skills. That's what you do in a liberal arts environment. And so coming back to Lincoln, saying, okay, we're liberal arts, but are we practicing that? Are we set up in such a way that we're able to actually deliver for our students what they need? And so if you look at any liberal arts college in this country that is aspirational for us, they think about curriculum not in terms of the number of classes that someone can take, but how you take those classes to build those skills. And so if you look at any of them, their course load is based upon 4 hours, right? 4 hours allows you to move content, but it also allows faculty members to be able to spend more time on projects, spend more time on discussion, spend more time writing, spend more time going out in the field and bringing something back, bringing people in, all the sort of supplemental things that help to not just seal facts and figures, but to help you think about facts and figures, use facts and figures, argue about facts and figures, and so on. And so helping the faculty to understand that when we moved from a 4-credit model to a 3-credit model, and there's nothing in any of the Lincoln history that I can find to even justify why we did that. What we did was we increased the load for students in terms of number of courses they needed to be full-time. So you went from 4 courses like I had when I was here semester to 5 courses. So you have more courses and you have less time in those courses. And so when you have more courses and less time, that means you have less time to do the other things that matter. And so faculty are spending all their time pushing out facts and figures and very little time helping you to or guiding you in how to actually use what you're learning to increase your intellectual skills. So it creates, I think, a better balance for students. On the faculty side, it also can help to reduce their workload. So they have less to prepare in terms of people to be in front of and more time to be able to do the things in front of students that can help to increase the ability to help you to use that knowledge more. And so I think it's a win-win for faculty and students. Also for faculty, it's helping to create more time for them to do the things outside the classroom for themselves that increase their own level of engagement in their own passions, right? So we're trying to create more time for faculty to be able to be engaged in their own scholarship. The more you're involved in research, the more you're involved in your area of study, the more you can bring to your students that's cutting edge. It also creates more time for faculty to engage you all in stuff like this, right? You know, you have faculty who are in that incubator with you. If they're in the classroom all the time, they don't have time to have those kind of interactions with you on the ground. It's really those serendipitous opportunities that you'll remember more when you leave here than anything you learn sitting in a finance class, for example. It's the ways in which you've been able to interact with your faculty members that really have pushed you to think more about who you are, what you can do, and the way that these things outside the classroom really challenge you to think about how you can use what you're learning in very different ways. So I think it's a great thing because it gives us the foundation to really practice the liberal arts in the way that it's done at institutions that are just great at what they do. And we want to be great again.
So what were some of the major obstacles you feel you had to overcome in creating this switch and making this movement towards that?
I think it was biggest obstacle was really helping people to see why it mattered, right? For a lot of people, they have not necessarily taught before in a true liberal arts environment. I found over the course of having these conversations, because it didn't happen overnight, it's about 4 or 5 years of constantly addressing one thing after another, but there are faculty members here who benefited from a liberal arts education, but had never put that together for Lincoln, right? They never saw that here. So getting people to see the possibilities and getting people to understand while it not only would have a positive impact on students, but it would have a positive impact on creating the time that they needed to really see their impact on students, right? So a lot of talk and a lot of convincing of people in terms of how they might do things differently in their classes. In fact, some of the conversations we had was like, well, what would I do if I had an extra hour? Well, you can use an extra hour a week and just talk, right? You can use an extra hour a week and just have your students have conversation with one another about what's going on. You can use an extra hour to have them go out in the community and do something and bring that back to the classroom. So freeing people's minds from, sometimes there's just a level of I don't know, sort of a level of hegemony to some degree, right? Where things are the way they are because that's the way they're supposed to be, as opposed to allowing yourself to be able to think about other possibilities. And so the biggest challenge was getting people to visualize and actually begin to see that there were different ways to do what we were doing that may in fact have a better impact on student learning outcomes, but also their own ability to bring interesting things to the classroom.
how long do you think it's going to take before we really get to see the impact of this 4 credit, and you say reaching back to these liberal arts and being prepared for all these things? Because I feel like I see the dream and everything and the passion that you have for it. But when do you feel like it'll be able to be not theoretical? You'll be able to bring your visions to life. How long do you think that's really going to take before you'll see that major impact?
Well, we see some of it immediately, right? So I've talked to some faculty who are like, I see the difference, right? I get to do more with my students. We get to do different things because I have more time. I see it in students because they seem a little less running, and doing more projects. You almost see it immediately. But what I want to see before I retire is that it's so ingrained in the culture that we won't let somebody come along and change it again. It's who we were, right? It's the experience I had at Lincoln. I think I did fine because of the way I was taught. And there's some things that have to go on beyond just getting the model in place, right? Really helping faculty take advantage of that extra time. So I always think when I was here and I had senior seminar, are you still a psych major?
Yeah.
All right. So when I had senior seminar, we had this professor. His name was Dr. Durkin. He was the epitome of the nutty professor. And we didn't figure out what he was doing until it was almost over. But basically, the goal of senior seminar when I was here was for students to design a study that had at least 3 independent variables, right? So we had to do this 3x3x3 ANOVA, which this was the whole goal. But nobody told us that. We just spent class time after class time, and he would run around and ask you this idea and ask you this idea. And somehow in this Socratic method is what I learned it was I finally learned it was called, is that they pull out from you, right? Everything that you're doing is done in this sort of conversational, think it through, put it out there. So the goal in seminar was for everyone to come up with this study that had these 3 variables. And we were doing this in one semester. So we not only had to come up with a study and a design, we had to actually then collect data. We had to analyze data. And then we had to present our project to a group of outside professors, right? When we did all this in one semester, first semester, right? So that by December, the final was these people coming in from Princeton and University of Delaware, and we had to stand in front of them and do a presentation. That's, we did that at Smith, right? They do that at Williams College. They do that at Amherst. We were doing that at Lincoln University in 1981. I'm proud to say I got an A+ in my senior seminar, which my faculty member told me was an overinflated grade. But nonetheless, it helped me to understand that I understood research. And when it came time to go to graduate school, I had the confidence that I needed. So spending more time with our faculty, giving them more tools. It's you guys are a different generation. What excites you, what engages you are going to be different. But there are so many more ways in which we can be creative in pedagogy that can help us to actually do more on the ground, to begin to make our courses more interactive and more engaged. I've taught now here 3 times. And the thing that disappoints me the most is the degree to which students don't say anything in class, right? So it's like pulling teeth. Students should be made to interact. And I think that means we need to be supporting faculty more on some of the more contemporary ways to have more interaction and engagement. Because as you have more time, it doesn't mean you just do more stuff. It's how you do that stuff that's going to matter from an outcome standpoint.
Okay. So in creating and reaching back into old things and old traditions, how are you linking that within the innovation of moving forward and doing new things and new exciting things on the campus while creating like the older style of learning teaching?
So, some traditions are some traditions are going to be forever, right? But how you do them is going to differ, right? So if you look at the strategic plan, it's actually entitled Reimagining. Reimagining the liberal arts or something is, but the whole learn, liberate, lead thing. So we never said that we were doing exactly what we did, but there's something about the core of what we did that remains fundamental. But how you do it has to be sensitive to the issues, concerns in the 21st century. So we do a lot more. When I was here, a lot of the things that we did in terms of active learning was really centered, in class projects and so on. Today, you all are really out in the community. Kids are doing research at other places. There wasn't a lot of that when I was here. Same idea, doing undergraduate research is important for sealing skills, but how we do it today is different. We had co-op when we were here. Some people did a whole semester and they worked somewhere. That doesn't really serve us as well as internships, right? So we do internships. So we're reimagining how to have the same impact of a liberal arts education, knowing what's important. What's important is that you're marrying the curricula and the co-curricula, that you are complementing classroom learning with the things that students are able to do outside the classroom. That's the fundamental sort of underlying concept of the liberal arts. How you do that is where the innovation is. You have to continuously be innovative because technology changes, opportunities change, what interests students change, but your goal can always remain the same. How you do it is what you try to respond to keep up with the times and to move yourself forward.
So, what are your vision for the next steps of Lincoln University? So now we have the 4-credit model. Now we're doing this, and you said we're reimagining. But what is like your vision of what Lincoln University look like?
So my vision is that Lincoln University will look like every other elite liberal arts institution, where faculty are actively engaged in scholarship and therefore actively engaging students in those opportunities, where our classrooms are highly engaged and highly interactive, where our expectations for our students and what they can achieve are very, very high in terms of the products that they produce. And that we can do that because we have the resources to make sure that it gets done, right? So in order to become this sort of premier liberal arts institution with the historically Black college flavor to it, because that's what makes us unique. That's our sauce, right? In order to do that, we have to make sure that faculty are resourced enough to be able to be engaged, so they're teaching high quality classes. We have to make sure that there are ample opportunities for students to then take those things they're learning and apply them to different things in the co-curricular arena. And we definitely have to make sure then that we are holding our students accountable for the idea that you get the most out of this education when you are the most intellectually engaged. And that happens whether you're in class or you're in the incubator or you are hanging out in somebody's room. You should always be driven by ideas and possibilities. That's why Lincoln was so great in the past. That's why those of you who graduate now and go on, if you just think back on your experiences and you think about how you spend your time. Yeah, we had a good time at homecoming and with some partying and a little bit of everything else, but you spend time with people who push you to think about how to do things differently, who push you to consider other possibilities than the things that you know. And you spend that time also with faculty who believe that you can achieve anything that you want. And when you have that kind of support in an environment, the sky's the limit for when you leave. And so I want my students to leave. I always tell people when I was at Brown and the kids I interacted with there, and they would come to me and at graduation, they would be doing just some of the stuff that was just unimaginable to me, like I'm going to go spend a year in Peru and I'm going to build homes for poor people, right? Or I'm going to, go somewhere on Wall Street and I'm going to do blah, blah, blah. I want my kids to have that same kind of confidence and boldness when they graduate, to really believe that they can do and become anything that they please. And you get that from just how nurturing, supportive, and challenging your college environment is. And I think we can be that. We can do that. We do it, but we don't do it for enough people right now. And so how do you scale up an experience like you're having, right, to other people? How do we make that the standard of what we do? And when we do that, I think we will be in the best place we've been in a long time.
Before we close out, is there anything that you want to say to anybody who's watching, or any advice, any motivation, anything like that?
Hey, all I can say is, college is a once in a lifetime journey, and the more you can make of this and the opportunities, the better you're going to be set up for going further. And don't waste it. That's all I can say. Don't waste it. I'm one who says do everything. Be strong in the class, be strong in your cohorts, but, have some fun too. Fun is important.
That's good. And with that, can I just get you to say this is the Black Caliber Podcast?
It's the Black
Caliber
Broadcast. Was that it?
Yeah.
And thank you for inviting me.
And thank you for showing up and letting me have you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shake. All right.
All right. Figured your arms was going to start getting tired.
I know y'all know.